Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another exciting Clubhouse episode show. This is our weekly Clubhouse event that we put together. We are part of the Mission Matters Club. And so we will allow all of our guests to introduce themselves in just a moment. But just so everyone gets an idea, Mission Matters is a platform focused on the needs of entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. Our mission is to help amplify their purpose because we want to inspire and educate future generations. So we put together this weekly show to bring on create a wide variety of topics. And this week's topic is focused on our gentleman here, Ron Coury, a published author who talks about surviving cancer, the Marines, corruption, and more, and has a very interesting and really movie-like story, and so we're gonna dive into his story in just a moment. And before we do that, though, I'm gonna pass the baton here to Adam, my counterpart, who's gonna be moderating and will be asking Ron a few questions, and we'll allow our guests to quickly introduce themselves before we dive right in. So with that, Adam, why don't you take the lead?
All right. Thank you, Chirag, as always. And I just want to say, man, this is an exciting episode. So Ron and I have worked together a couple times in the podcast. I've interviewed him a couple times, and I thought it'd be interesting to bring him on this platform because unlike the podcast where only I'm asking questions, this is more of a fireside chat. So we're obviously talking about Ron's book, Tenacity, but in the same sense, it's really a conversation. It's an intimate conversation around many different topics within the book and otherwise. And everybody else, so Chirag, Catherine, I mean, you're welcome to ask Ron questions as well. Again, definitely fireside chat style, and let's have some fun. This is being recorded so that people can listen to it later, as Chirag mentioned. So this will go on all of our social media platforms and otherwise, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. So first off, Ron, just want to say, hey, welcome to our Clubhouse Club. I'm glad to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the kind words Chirag began with.
So, Ron, I think just to kick this off, maybe just give us a little bit of the background behind the book and what led you down the road to putting out this work.
Sure. I came to Vegas out of the Marine Corps in 1973 and became a casino dealer, wanting one day to have my own business. Took me a couple of years to develop the opportunity that enabled me to buy a local bar, which back in 1979, the bar business was purely selling drinks and food. Later, video poker would get invented, and we would become gaming parlors, which changed our revenue stream from very, very low numbers by comparison to $50,000 to $100,000 a week in handling revenue. And how I grew from one tavern to four, later to 20 different businesses beyond the tavern industry is the genesis of my book. And in that growth, I encountered a corrupt city councilman in an adjoining city to Las Vegas, where I wanted to build a casino. And he ran his city, and with the help of a corrupt policeman on his police department, tried to eliminate me as a business competitor. And the book goes into the details of how I had to navigate the attack on my character and actual criminal charges that he orchestrated. And I don't want to be a spoiler to the book, but it walks you through the building of businesses, challenges I had to overcome. And at the peak of my business career, at the age of 53, I learned I had esophageal cancer, having never smoked a day in my life. But between being a casino dealer and a bar owner, a lot of secondhand smoke contributed to the cancer growth on my esophagus. and I had an 8% chance of survival. Went through a year of recovery after an 11-hour surgery, and I'm now 16 years cancer-free. So hopefully I serve as an inspiration to people who face the toughest fight of their lives when they get diagnosed. And my story helps to motivate and inspire people who want to one day own their own business.
Man, what an amazing story. And we won't spoil the end, and we're not going to spoil some of the big points, but I do want to give people some of the things that just stuck out in the book to me. First off, when you say you became a casino dealer, until I really got into the book, and I've been listening to the audiobook version. Actually, let's start with that part of it. Talk about, and then I'll ask my question in a moment, because I want to start there right now that I think of it. The audio production, it's a true production. I have listened to a lot of different audiobooks, both, from really big publishers and from independent publishers, varying level of quality, but yours is something special. Talk a little bit about like what went into that and why you decided to go that route.
Sure. Well, after I finished writing the book and it went into print, I inquired from my public relations company about the audiobook option and wondered what percentage of books in the nation sold in that format before committing the money that it would require to create one. And I was shocked to learn that 25% of books today are sold in audio version. As a result, I wanted to make my audiobook something that would stand out. So I wanted to hire a familiar voice. I spoke to my PR people about different actors that came to mind whose voices I thought were recognizable and would help sell books. We first approached Gene Hackman, who came to mind because he's the voice of Wells Fargo commercials, and I immediately recognized his voice. And when my public relations company reached out to his representatives, we learned that he was respectfully declining any work except for that commercial work. He was fully retired. But the agent that we communicated with said that she also represented Michael Madsen, who I immediately knew from Kill Bill, Donnie Brasco, and Reservoir Dogs, among 100 other movies he's made. So then the next step is that talent available, or are they filming a movie for 6 months? Well, Michael was available during the window of opportunity that I could get a soundstage for 1 week. And we struck a financial agreement with his people. I brought him to Vegas from California, the Malibu area, and put him in a suite at the Bellagio, picked him up every morning, drove him to the sound studio, and he read my book into an audio file that the editors from the sound studio would work on for several weeks before we had the final product. And that's how the audiobook came about.
What was it like kind of going through that process of recording? It had to be kind of fun, huh?
It was fun because it's something I'd never done before. And if anyone reads Tenacity, they'll see that I really enjoyed the challenge of new businesses. I wasn't limiting myself to taverns after doing 4 of them. I opened a limousine company, a graphics company, a wholesale glass and mirror company, among many other things. So a new challenge like this was yet another thing to do. I found it very interesting to get to know him. We sat there in the studio for many hours a day. We broke for lunch. I took him to dinner every night. And it was quite interesting to hear some of his Hollywood-related stories and get to know the guy, ultimately finishing the week with the book conclusion and letting it go to editing. And then I brought him to town when I had a book reveal party so people could meet him. We had over 200 people attend the book party, and meeting Michael Madsen and taking pictures with him was something that everyone that attended is going to remember.
It's awesome. And so, Catherine, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd love to. First of all, pleasure to meet you, Ron. Fascinating. I have a question from the legal perspective. What's the best way to say this? What was the reaction of the person who you said was corrupt?
I pride myself on trying to do things right, hiring the right support people to advise me. And my public relations company put me in touch with a literary attorney based in New York City. Turns out he was actually in Brooklyn, in the neighborhood I grew up in. Talk about a small world. We had a number of phone discussions before we concluded a deal where he would read my book, advise me on changes to make. And I really didn't want to try to tell my story, but get tied up in court for 5 years. The attorney read the book and said, I suggest you change these names. It doesn't really hinder the story you're telling. The people you're talking about are going to know who they are. People who have grown up in Vegas are going to remember what they read in the newspapers.
Sure.
So he said, I think it's inconsequential and will keep you from any legal challenges. So we changed the name of the adjoining city to Opportunity, Nevada. Anyone who lives in Vegas is going to know the name of the city that's right adjacent to it.
Sure. What great advice you got.
Yeah. Bob Stein was a great attorney. I highly recommend him to anyone thinking of writing a book and publishing. And sure enough, he gave me that advice. I made the changes to the book. And we have not had one challenge, as the book has received rave reviews on Amazon.
Did you choose to go the self-publishing route, hybrid publishing, or full on?
No, I chose the self-publishing route because I felt, well, one, I was financially able to do it, which is a blessing. I was told if I wanted to pursue someone else to publish it, it would probably take a couple of years for the book to actually come out. Yes, I had to first hire a literary agent, and that literary agent search would take time, and then getting a publisher to take it on and get it out. I was told, unless you're a Stephen King or something like that, any first-time author is going to hit a lot of obstacles. And honestly, while I was still relatively young, energetic, and healthy, I wanted to be able to market my book and be active in it and not wait 5 to 7 years for it to come out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it gives you locus of control, no doubt. Yeah, fascinating. I look forward to reading your book. So from what I understand then, this is a fiction novel based on truth.
It is my life story. The only thing that's fictionalized is some of the names of a city and some of the people. Many of the actual people in my life.
What genre is it in? Fiction or non?
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction. Got it.
Autobiography.
Got it. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And then just to chime in, his book is actually the link at the top, so you could actually see his book listed right there if anyone wanted to purchase it.
So Ron, I want to pull out some of these stories, man, because when I told Chirag, I was like, Chirag, I'm not even going to spoil these stories because you got to hear it from Ron, because it's kind of unbelievable. The first unbelievable story, what's believable? So talk about how you became a dealer, like a little bit specific, because when I heard, and I'm saying heard because I listened to the audiobook, right? So when I heard him say how you got to be a dealer, I was like, get out of here. This sounds like something Chirag would do, like kindred spirits over here. Tell us that story, please. You got permission, I should say, to be a dealer.
Well, I was serving in the Marine Corps on active duty, stationed in Barstow, California, which is a 2.5-hour drive on the interstate to Las Vegas. I visited Las Vegas on weekends during that tour of duty. And I did some research into a relatively new program that President Nixon started called Project Transit. One of the problems the United States government was encountering was military people would finish their service time and immediately go on unemployment for a year, and it was draining the unemployment rolls of dollars. So they came up with something they named Project Transition, which said for your last 6 months of active duty, a serviceman could work for a civilian employer, learn a trade that they could use when discharged from active duty. And I thought that was an excellent opportunity if I could get the necessary approvals. But stationed in a small desert town of Barstow, the kind of jobs I would get would be to pump gas or work at a McDonald's. It wasn't going to really teach me anything. The attractiveness to an employer is the military would continue paying the Marine for 6 months while he worked for the employer. Well, I thought, and I researched the regulations, it said the Marine was not limited to the jurisdiction he was in, as long as his commanding officer could maintain adequate controls over the Marine's appearance and fitness in the event we went to war and he needed to be activated into another region. So I had a sergeant in the company I was stationed with in Barstow who came to Vegas every weekend with his family. He had a Monday to Friday job, and I asked if he would mind being the supervision that Project Transition required, and he said, yeah, I'd be happy to. So I put in the papers to be a break-in dealer in Las Vegas under Project Transition, and my commanding officer says, hell no, you're not going to go to Vegas and do this. You need to go work in Barstow. And I said, all due respect, Captain, that's not what the regulation says. No offense intended, but I'm going to appeal your ruling to the battalion commander. And it was my right. He may not have liked it, but I was on a mission. And I went to the battalion commander on the base, made my case, and he commended me for making my case, backed it up with the Marine regulations, and he approved my Project Transition, wherein I moved to Vegas 6 months before being officially discharged from active duty and worked as a casino dealer in a small casino in downtown Las Vegas that was willing to hire. Bear in mind, you could not employ Project Transition for school, and most dealers had to go to dealer school. I had to find a casino owner that would employ me as a on-the-job training dealer, and I did. And we pushed that through the system, and that's what I did for my last 6 months of active duty. I worked as a break-in blackjack dealer. I ended up learning how to deal roulette, dice, and baccarat, ultimately getting a job at the Tropicana Hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, where that was my stepping stone to become a realtor and ultimately a business owner.
Man, talk about navigating your way into the business. To be able to be doing that while on active duty as a Marine, I listened to that and I was like, come on, Ron, how did you do that one? That's like working magic.
Yeah, it was exciting, and I'm very proud of the fact that while the story is interesting and presented me with several challenges, it's exactly how it happened and when it happened, and I'd like to think it might inspire people to not give up when they're told no the first time about something they're trying to achieve.
So you've been in Vegas a long time, right? And you've seen the build up, and you've seen just what's taken place. Like, so your vantage point, also being in the business, owning taverns and owning different properties, and then real estate, of course. I mean, you've seen a lot of change. What was one point that you did make in the book was talking about that change? I don't know if I call it a change or if it was an addition or what it was, but it's definitely a change in behavior into video poker and what that did to Vegas and just the poker wave there. Can you tell me a little bit more about what went into that?
Well, what people will learn in my story is the tavern business in Las Vegas was purely drinks, and if you had a small kitchen, you also sold food, and that's how you generated revenue. And that's how I started in the tavern business. That's all there was, until someone invented video gaming, not poker machines. I'm talking about what started out as Space Invaders or Pong, and then it became Pac-Man, and then it went crazy. And these games, you'd get an operator that would buy the game and keep it serviced, but these games would generate $1,200 to $1,500 a week in quarters from your patrons, as did my pool tables. They were very profitable as well. And in the 80s, a fella that I knew in Las Vegas named Cy Red, who was a slot machine salesman for Bally's slot machines, not Bally's the hotel, he developed a video poker game. And while my book goes into greater detail, I'll just give you the high points. He went to the heads of Bally's and said, hey, I came up with this interactive gaming thing. You guys are just selling slot machines that line up cherries and sevens. What do you think about running with this now that I've got it started? And they laughed him out of the room and said, no one wants to deal with interactive gaming. They want to put dice and blackjack.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
did you make a worse call?
Raised a little bit of money, opened a place called Fortune Coin, which became IGT. And Cyred is who started that. And video poker and other video interactive forms of gaming got its start in that way. And while my book goes into greater detail on how I knew Cy, that really changed the face of the tavern business from selling drinks and food to generating revenue. Most taverns in Las Vegas can operate 15 machines. That's the maximum, unless you're a hotel with over 200 rooms. That's a local ordinance, local and state. Well, before the 15 machine limit, there was a 35 machine category, and I was lucky enough to have 2 such locations that I got approval for from the local zoning people. And then in an outlying city, while Las Vegas and Clark County were creating these limitations to protect the big boys, which are the hotel owners, in this outlying jurisdiction, they had not developed a hotel limit yet. So I purchased a half acre to put a building on that had unlimited gaming opportunities. And that's where I encountered the corrupt councilman we were speaking of, because he tried to keep me from getting the approvals to build that place, while in the background, he was developing his own 3 places and also competed with me in the graphics business, which printed the slot machine fronts by pure coincidence, but all gaming related. And to keep me from becoming a competitor of his, he had no qualms about using his small town police department to frame me with criminal charges and try to do away with me as a competitor in private business. And the book goes into interesting detail with the private investigator I hired and how I overcame those obstacles and ultimately developed not 1, but 2 casinos while operating 2 15-machine taverns.
Talk a little bit about maybe the difference between I think something, because I'm not from Vegas, so listening to your book is kind of like, it was very educational, even from the standpoint of like how Vegas works outside of the Strip. I think when most people think about Las Vegas, they're just thinking about the Strip if they're tourists like me and they don't live there or have family or anything else. But a lot of the things that you did with taverns or bars or otherwise were off the Strip, and they more so served the local communities. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, there's a whole industry that the tourists that stay on the Strip or on Fremont Street, known as downtown Las Vegas, never witness. And that is the local taverns that all your hotel and other employees stop at on their way home. And we're a 3-shift town, the casinos are open 24/7. So while other businesses traditionally may close at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. when a mall closes, your local taverns are open 24/7. And it wouldn't be uncommon for when a shift of dealers or bartenders and cocktail waitresses get off work at a hotel, 15 or 20 of them will agree to meet at a local tavern. And at 2 a.m., you have an insurge of customers who are, to them, it's 5 p.m. in the normal workday, and they want to go out for a couple hours before they go home at the end of their workday. So from 2 to 5 a.m., you just have an influx of 20 patrons looking to drink, eat, and gamble, and socialize, play pool, darts, whatever your particular tavern might engage in. And that subculture exists, and the tourists know nothing about it. But all of these local taverns are operating video poker machines and other types of gaming machines, as well as traditional slot machines, to add to their revenue stream other than selling drinks and food.
Yeah, I thought it was a really unique insight into the tavern business in general and how it worked. I found it kind of interesting to think about. Like, we don't always think about it as tourists, like what like where everybody goes afterwards. So I thought it was pretty cool. So getting further along into the book, and obviously without doing the spoilers and stuff like that, what are some of the things that you hope by telling this story and by talking about the corruption and all the other things that took place, which we won't give all the details here because we want people to go and read that book or to listen to it either way. What are some of the things that you hope the people that digest the material get out of the book?
Well, I'd like to think that it serves a multitude of purposes, not only entertainment value by people reading it, knowing it's a true story, but to show entrepreneurs that you may encounter obstacles in making your dream a reality. And when someone tells you, no, you can't do that, don't just take it and lie down. Find ways around that obstacle or through it. And whether it's, I mean, very few people are going to encounter a corrupt city councilman like I did, but they might encounter zoning issues or building issues, and realize that there are solutions to problems. You just have to work to find those solutions. Also to inspire and motivate people to go out and try to fulfill their dream, not assume that they just need to go into some form of employment, work for someone for 30 years and retire. Go out and fulfill your dreams and pursue that level of diligence or tenacity, if you will, that's necessary to achieve success that one when growing up would never think, whether it's in dollars or having a couple of hundred employees, that any of that type of thing is very doable if you take on the challenge and the risk.
Well said, Ron. Well said. Well, hey, Ron, just want to thank you for coming out today. I wanted to introduce more people to your story. Chirag, any other last minute questions for Ron? Not to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody got a shot to throw out some questions or anything else while we had Ron on the line.
Yeah, I'm actually curious.
Let me inject one thing I didn't touch on.
Go for it.
There is a lot more detail in my book's website, which I'd like people to go check out. It's roncouryauthor.com. Coury is spelled Coury. So going to roncouryauthor.com, there's a photo gallery. There's more details about the book. There's a link to listen to a sample of Michael Madsen reading my story. And they can also fast click on to Amazon if they want to buy one.
Beautiful. I actually just updated the link there, so I guess we got a new picture for the drive file, so thank you for that. Second thing, I guess my one question that I have is I'm actually curious because I know you've got quite the journey. What are your, I guess if there are any life principles that you follow with just everything that you've learned, and I'm sure it's evolved, right? Like it does for many people. Do you have any life principles or core values or things that keep you grounded or in line on any opportunities you come across now? And if so, what are they?
Well, it might sound like canned information, but honestly, there's a lot to be said for being good with your customers and your employees. Be a true and loyal friend. Don't be attracted for the fast dollar. Sometimes you pass up on the fast dollar, you do the right thing, and the payday comes down the road. So not to be motivated by money always, but I put a lot of value in the trust and loyalty that my friends and employees have given to me, that I've tried to give back to them. The book goes into some of those friendships and how when it wasn't very popular to be my friend because of some bad publicity that a corrupt council member was creating, how people on the police department and in the business world stood by me, and I proved them right. And that kind of loyalty, there you can't put a dollar value on it. So that's the message, is to be a good and loyal friend, so your friends will stand by you if you ever need them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Chirag, if
awesome.
You'd like to do the, I'm just man, that's a great answer.
I know, I love it. Thank you so much for the insight, Ron. I appreciate it. Again, his book can be purchased at roncouryauthor.com. We'll be sharing it on all of our show notes across all of our social media once we share this recording with everyone. So thank you for tuning in. And again, we have a weekly show, and now we have one of our authors through our network, Elizabeth Yo, who's hosting her own show on wellness. Friday Wellness at 9 a.m. PST. Actually, you could follow our Mission Matters Club for anyone out there, where you can get access to all of our events. So we have a show actually tomorrow, 4 p.m. PST Friday. It's Wellness Weekend. And then we have our next show on discussing the future of farming with the Future Farmers of America. And we've got an amazing panel then as well. So that's Thursday, November 18th at 4 p.m. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks again, Ron, for sharing your story with us. And we'll be sure to share this recording with all of our audience. I'm looking forward
for making this possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks again, Ron. Appreciate
it.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.